Hi boys and girls, welcome to math. So our new unit for math is going to be lesson 23 that we're starting this week. And we are going to be focusing on dividing with unit fractions, okay? So today I'm going to walk you through pages 459 and 460 in your RCC book. So you should open that up to page 459. But first, before I dive into that, I'm just going to go over some important information that you're going to need to know. It's really important that you don't tune me out when I go over my poster, because what I do is I'm taking the most important things, the skills that you need to know how to do, and I'm telling you them before we go into the workbook pages. So this is kind of like a really, really important part, all right? So I'm just going to look at my target and ask myself, why am I doing this? What I want to be able to do is divide unit fractions by whole numbers and divide whole numbers by unit fractions, okay? So I just want to start off and let you know that a unit fraction is a fraction that represents one unit. So it has a numerator of 1. So for example, 1/5, 1/4, 1/12, 1/3. Those are all unit fractions, okay? Because they represent one unit. So we're going to be looking at doing division in two different ways with these unit fractions. So for some of them, we're going to be dividing the unit fraction by a whole number. A whole number, boys and girls, is just a regular number, like 4, 32, 70, okay? That's a whole number. So we're dividing a unit fraction, which is like one of these, by a whole number. Okay, so I'm showing you some examples. So one of the examples might be something like 1/3, which is a unit fraction, divided by 4. I want to tell you that when you are using division with fractions like this, we are going to make it so that we can multiply instead. So when you have a unit fraction divided by a whole number, this is what you can do. You can change it into your unit fraction the same way, multiply instead of divide, and then you make your whole number into the unit fraction of itself. So instead of 4, you're going to have 1/4, okay? Then you multiply across. So 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 4 is 12, okay? So I want to show you why that's true. Right here, I'm starting with 1/3, right? I have a whole that's divided into 3 equal parts, and I shaded one of them. This shows 1/3. If I divide 1/3 up into 4 pieces, so I'm dividing it into 4, okay? So I just divided my 1/3 into 4. Now, one piece has become a 12th, okay? Now I have 12 pieces, and I would be talking about one of them. So 1 out of 12, okay? Let's look at another example. It's kind of confusing at first, but you're going to get it. So if you have 1/6 divided by 2, that's the same thing as 1/6 times 1/2. So you're putting a 1 over your whole number. And instead of dividing, you're multiplying. Okay? So I want you to listen to me one more time. 1/6 divided by 2 is the same thing as 1/6 times 1/2. Okay? So then we multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, so it's saying 1/6 times 1/2 is 1/12, which is the answer to 1/6 divided by 2. Okay, I want to show you why that's correct. Right here I have 1/6. My shape is divided into 6 equal parts, and one of them is shaded, right? If I now divide this shape into 2, so I'm dividing this into 2, okay, I now am showing 1/12, okay? when I divide 1/6 into 2, this is my piece here. 1/6 is divided into 2, and that is going to give me 1/12. Okay? So, when you divide a unit fraction by a whole number, you can do the fraction times the unit fraction of your whole number. So times 1 over your whole number. Okay? If you need to hear that again, go back to this video and review it, because it seems confusing to learn, but it's actually a pretty simple strategy. So literally, instead of dividing, you multiply. Instead of your regular 4, you do 1 over 4, okay? Then you just multiply across and it's easy. Now, for the next part, when you're dividing a whole number by a unit fraction, it's a little different. So for these, we're starting with the whole number, dividing by the unit fraction. So this is the trick for this one. When you have 4 divided by 3, it's the same thing as 4 times 3 over 1. So you're flipping this fraction, boys and girls, okay? Instead of dividing, you're multiplying, and then you're literally flipping it upside down, okay? So then when we multiply, I know that any number over 1 is really a whole number. So 3 over 1 is the same thing as 3, okay? So this is really like doing 4 times 3, right? Which is 12. And I want to show you why that's the case. If I have 4 things here, right? I'm starting with 4 holes. I have 4 shapes. If I divide those all into 1/3, I'm going to end up with this. I'm dividing each one into thirds. Okay? And now, how many pieces am I working with here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? So that's why I'm ending up with 12 here. Let's look at the other example. So I have 6 divided by 1/4. That's the same thing as 6 times 4 over 1. Okay? Instead of dividing, I multiply, and I flip-flop the fraction. Now, when I go to multiply, I know that any number over 1 is a whole number. So this is like the same thing as 6 times 4, and 6 times 4 is 24. Okay? I want to show you why that's true, boys and girls. Because if I have 6 holes, I'm dividing each of them into fourths. So I'm cutting them each into 4 pieces. Okay? Now, I have 24 pieces. Okay? When I started with 6 and I divided them all into fourths, I now have 24 pieces. Okay? So just to review, when you're dividing a whole number by a unit fraction, all you have to do is keep your whole number. So you have 4. Instead of dividing, you multiply. Then you flip the fraction. Instead of 1 over 3, you do 3 over 1. And when you multiply by a number over 1, it's the same thing as the whole. So if we have 3 over 1, it's the same thing as 3. If you have 27 over 1, it's the same thing as 27. Okay? So these are the rules. I'm going to take a picture of this poster too and upload it into our assignment today, because this is really going to help you. Okay? These are the rules that you really need to know for this unit. So now I need you to look at page 459 of your RCC book. We're going to do the pages together. Okay? So you're going to be doing the RCC pages with me, and then you just have to do Mrs. Jones's exit ticket, okay? And the other few things on her list. So this week it's a little bit easier because we have a short week. So, number 1 on page 459 says, Mrs. Cook wants to share 1/4 pound of fish equally among 3 cats. How much fish will each cat get? So, they're showing here 1/4, right? They're making kind of like an area model. So they split up a square into fourths, and they highlighted 1/4 of them. Now, they're dividing it among 3 cats. So now we need to cut this into thirds. Everyone needs to do that. Cut it into thirds. Okay? So what is 1/4 divided into thirds, or divided by 3? That's going to give me one of these cubes here. So how many do I have in total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12, and then I have 1. So 1/12. Okay? So if I had 1/4 of a pound of fish and I wanted to share it amongst 3 cats, they would each get 1/12. So 1/4 divided by 3 is going to be 1/12. Okay? Number 2 says, look at the problem about Mrs. Cook again. Complete the statements below to solve the same division problem using multiplication. So this is where my strategies that I taught you come in. So first of all, it says, each cat will get blank of 1/4 of a pound of fish. Since we're splitting it between 3 cats, each cat is getting 1/3 of 1/4. Okay? So now we need to write the multiplication equation of that. So I have 1/3, and this helps me too because it says of, so I know it's multiplying. 1/3 times 1/4. And what is that going to equal? 1/12. Okay? All right, take a minute and get that down if you need to. Then I'm going to look at page 460. Okay. So, let's look here at number 3 on page 460. So it says, Mr. Putnam wants to cut a 3-foot rope into 1/4 foot pieces. How many 1/4 foot pieces can he cut? Draw on the bar model to solve the problem. So, I have a 3-foot rope here. He's already divided it up into the 3 feet, right? This is 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 feet, okay? I need to divide them up into each 1/4 pieces. So each of these has to be made into 1/4 pieces. When I make fourths, this is what I like to do. I cut the piece in half, and then I cut each of those pieces in half, okay? That gives me 4. Cut it in half, cut those in half. Cut it in half, cut those in half. Okay, so I just cut each one into 4. So, B says, Mr. Putnam can cut blank pieces of rope that are 1/4 foot long. So how many pieces of rope did we just cut? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? We cut 12 pieces of rope. Okay. So when we do this problem, 3 divided by 1/4, I know that when I'm dividing by a unit fraction, so like when I'm doing this, when I'm dividing by the unit fraction, I can multiply by the flip-flop of the fraction. So I can change this to be, instead of 3 divided by 1/4, I can do 3 times 4/1, right? I'm multiplying instead of dividing, and I'm putting my 4/1, flip-flopping my fraction. Then I multiply. I know 4/1 is the same thing as 4, so I can just do 3 times 4, which is 12. Oh, perfect. That's the same thing as what I got up here, right? Now let's look at number 4. Number 4 says, look at your model again. Complete the statement below to solve the same division using multiplication. So we kind of already looked at that a little bit. So it says, there are blank fourths in each whole foot. So if you look at the whole foot, which would be like this is 1 foot, How many fourths are in each of those? 4, right? There's 4 fourths in one whole. Write a multiplication equation to find the number of fourths in 3 feet. So, since we know there's 3 feet, we're multiplying it by the number of fourths in each foot, which is 4. So it's 3 times 4. What's 3 times 4? It's 12. So that means that Mr. Putnam can cut 12 1/4 pieces of rope. Okay? I'm not going to have you do problem 5 on page 460. You can skip that. Okay? So I need you to go look at your slide deck, see what you have left for math today, and please, please make sure you do Mrs. Jones's exit ticket and submit it. Okay? Don't forget. Bye, guys.